Hello, Steve White, Steve White 39. Well, I watched The Haunting of BLY Manor. Now, like a lot of people, I watched The Haunting of Hill House, and I was familiar with the story, but I really loved the series. So I was excited to find out they were doing either a sequel or a continuation or just another series. And then I sort of forgot about it, and I didn't realise it actually started. I think it's already been out for a week or so. I stumbled across it last night, and I thought, I'm just going to marathon it. It was about 10 o'clock. I thought, I can do it. I can get the whole thing watched. And I did that. Now, unfortunately, I didn't know anything about the story. I wasn't sure if it was an original story or a continuation of The Haunting of Hill House. Because of the name, I figured it was a different story. And it did sound familiar, but I didn't know anything about it. I just thought, just watch it, see what happens. I wish I'd done some research. Now, I wasn't particularly happy with the series. I was fairly disappointed when I was watching it and fairly confused, and I didn't fall asleep during it, but I found other things to do and was really just waiting for it to end. Part of the problem is the show is made up of the story, The Turning of the Screw, is one that's been done many times, and it's one that's ambiguous. It has a ghost and it doesn't actually doesn't make a stance on if the ghosts are real or not. So it's sort of been one of those stories that's been around forever and been done a bunch of times. They wanted to do that, but they knew they couldn't just do that. So the author, whose name I forget, and I realise I wrote on my other notes while I was watching the show, they basically took a bunch of his stories and included them in the series and just weaved them all together. And that was part of the problem that I had, where the story was really disconjointed. You started off with one character and you're in one sort of environment with a group of characters, and that kind of worked. And then it suddenly went off into other eras and other characters and other perceptions and dreams or memories or purgatories of other characters, and they were all sort of connected to the main story, but they were all over the place and very different and very separate, and I didn't enjoy all of them. And then they just sort of rounded it off with the last episode. Now, the story itself, so don't listen to this if you don't want spoilers, but basically in 2007 there's a wedding. One of the guests basically tells a ghost story about BLY Manor, and she tells it in a third party, but it's actually her story, but she does acknowledge that she has changed it, that it's not actually the exact story. Now, whether that's because she didn't want certain people to know exactly who she was talking about or exactly what the story was or where it was based and so forth, I'm not sure, but it's sort of obvious at the end that it's very much a story. But we know that that's true, but we don't know if that's actually exactly what happened. Now, the story actually starts in 1676, and there's a couple of sisters who live in the manor, and they have to marry to keep the house after their father dies. The sort of main character, Viola, gets sick. Her sister takes care of her for years, but her sister eventually kills her because she can't take her abuse anymore, which is mostly inspired by the fact that I think she was interested or having an affair with her husband, who she only married to keep the house. So I can't remember that actually exactly what happened there. I wasn't paying enough attention. She kills her when she basically suffocates her, and this is 10 years later in 1687. All her stuff is put into a trunk, and she's not supposed to open it. She's supposed to leave it for the daughter, but the sister opens it because they are running out of money and they're thinking of selling it, and she's in the trunk and she kills her sister, and this was in 1687. So I've skipped a couple of years there, and I forgot the date of the other one, but the husband throws the trunk into the lake, and then she becomes like trapped in the lake, and she becomes the lady of the lake. Over years, she wanders into the manor looking for her daughter Isabel. She somehow creates a gravity well which stops spirits of people who have died or that she's murdered from leaving the manor. And then we sort of jump in time to 1987, 300 years later, also 200 years later, no, 300 years later, yeah. And we have an American au pair who comes to the house. Her name's Danny, and she's taking care of the kids because the parents have been killed. Basically, the uncle was cheating with the wife because the husband was always away. They went away on a trip to try and rekindle their relationship and died. He blamed himself. He was haunted by himself, which is another story. When Danny arrives, we don't realise at first, but at least one of the characters is a ghost. The cleaner has been killed by the son, who was possessed by, I think he was the driver, who stole to support his mother and all his personal drama with that, which I won't go into. And then he was trapped on the property. He died somehow. And the girl, there was another au pair that he was romancing. She wanted to be with him, and he wanted to be with her, and he sort of tried to find a way in death, and he basically got her to kill herself to be with him. So that's their story. And he at some point possessed the boy to kill the cleaner, who we don't know is dead. And we have a lot of weird things happening. They lock the au pair in the closet, which is to stop her, because they're always trying to stop her from wandering in the house at night, because they know, due to the placement of a doll, there's a doll house with dolls of all the characters, and there's one of Viola and whatever, and that sits outside of the house under some drawers, which is, I guess, the location of the lake. So whenever she moves, they know that the ghost is on the move, so they know to basically hide from her, because she kills anyone she encounters as she's searching for her daughter. So it does get very convoluted and very confusing. Basically, the two ghosts try and use the children so that they can use their bodies and leave or something. It's some plot. And ultimately, I was going to go into all of that. I wrote it all down, but it's just too convoluted. Basically, the au pair somehow knows how to offer herself to Viola, who is taking the daughter, Flora, into the lake to take with her, like her daughter Isabella, and she, even though I thought she was possessed, I thought Rebecca, who was the first au pair, I thought she was in her, but she offers to take her place, to take her pain. So I don't know if they were successful in transferring. I lost the plot of a lot of what was happening. But basically, she offers herself to the Lady of the Lake. She breaks the spell. All the spirits are freed from her being trapped in the house or possessing other people. The uncle, who was actually killed momentarily by Viola, is resuscitated, and he's actually the father of Flora. He takes her to America, her and the son to America to live. The au pair gets with the gardener because they were romancing the whole time, and they live together for 6 years, but she knows that Viola is in her, and she knows at some point she's going to return, and it's when she finds herself becoming possessed and indications she could harm Jamie, the gardener. They couldn't marry. This was the 90s at this point, I think 6 years later, so it would be 1993. She basically leaves and goes to the manor. She disappears, and she ends up in the lake, and she ends the cycle by basically taking her place as the Lady of the Lake, but not taking anyone else. And Jamie tries to sacrifice herself, tries to join her, but she doesn't take her, she doesn't hear the word, she doesn't accept her. And that's sort of where it ends. Then we go back to the end where she's telling the story, and she's telling it to the adult Flora, who the children have lost the memory of what happened in the house. They don't remember anything. The relatives who got out, the uncle and the chef, Owen, and one of the other characters escaped as well. I think they have partial memories, but obviously they're allowing Flora to live her life and have the wedding, and that's when we sort of see for sure that the person telling the story is Jamie, and she basically is haunted by Danny, and she wants her to come back. She wants to see her again, and it ends with her falling asleep, and her hair turns to. She's got grey hair, and her hair turns to dark. We see the hand of Jamie, who's got the wedding ring, to show that they were symbolically at least married. And that's where it ends, and you never really... There's supposed to be a lot of ambiguity about who is she? Is she back? Is she a ghost? Is she a memory? Is she haunting her? Is it a memory? Why is her hair dark? Blah, blah. It's all about ambiguity and mystery, and it's basically prioritizes a love story over the actual ghost story. And that wasn't what I signed up for, so I wasn't really happy with it as a whole. I appreciate its complexities more as I've done a bit of research and worked out, but it really did prioritize the mystery and the confusion over scares or anything that I found interesting. So I didn't really appreciate it. I'm appreciating it more as I sort of did some research and worked it out. But there's a lot of weird things. There's the face of the ghosts disappear over time. They lose their memories. Viola, every time she goes back into the lake, she loses her memory and then comes out again to look for her daughter. They have a lot of ghostly concepts that are hard to grasp because they're not sort of the typical ones, like the possession. They call it being tucked away, where they put someone into like a memory loop of their own. It's sort of like purgatory, where they're living in some sort of hell or some memory. And yeah, like I said, it's a combination of... Each episode has a different name of a different short story written by the author, and The Jolly Corner, The Romance of Certain Old Clothing, and I wish I remembered the name of the author, which I was sure I wrote down, but I can't find it. I can't read my own notes. Oh well. I think if you're listening to this, you already know the name of the author. Damn it. I need to take better notes in future. But it was interesting overall. The mood was good. The production values were there. The images were there. There were a lot of really interesting surreal imagery in that. But ultimately, it was a romance story, and it was a combination of a bunch of stories just threaded together, and it went backwards and forwards. And there wasn't a real continuity. Not really. There is when you see the links afterwards and you understand. But when you're watching it, it felt like 1 minute you're in someone's story, the next minute you're in someone's past, the next minute you're in somebody's purgatory, and you weren't quite sure. And there was a little bit of interest in that mystery, but it was too much, I felt. So ultimately I didn't really enjoy it, and I just sort of wanted to do a video about it just because it was interesting enough. So I'm going to go. Thanks for listening. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of it. I liked Hill House better, but I do look forward to the next one because I didn't realise they recast some of the actors, and they do seem to be possibly doing some sort of American horror story, anthology sort of story, where each year it's a different story using some of the actors and different elements and things. So it could be interesting. I look forward to see what they do next year, but I'm going to research a bit more before I watch it so I'm not as lost and surprised as I was by this one. But again, I'm going to go. Thanks. Bye.